Welcome again, dear student. Myself Dr. Kaleem Ahmed, Assistant Professor, Department of Wildlife Sciences, Aligarh Muslim University, Aligarh. Now, in today's lecture, we will continue to discuss the remaining biodiversity hotspots. The next is coastal forest of Eastern Africa. The coastal forest of Eastern Africa biodiversity hotspots actually stretch along the eastern edge of Africa and includes some parts of Somalia, Kenya and Tanzania. The hotspots forests are home to variety of primate species including 3 endemic and highly threatened monkey species and 2 endemic bush baby species. There are about 4050 vascular plant species in the coastal forest of Eastern African biodiversity hotspots, and approximately 43% of the plant species of these biodiversity hotspots are endemic. There are about 633 bird species occur in this biodiversity hotspot, out of which 11 are endemic. We can say there are about 200 mammal species that are actually found in these biodiversity hotspots, out of which 11 are considered to be endemic species. There are about 250 reptile species in the coastal forest of Eastern Africa hotspot, of which more than 50 of which are endemic to these biodiversity hotspots. The hotspots has also we can say our 85 amphibian species, 6 of which are found nowhere else, means they are endemic, including we can say the endangered Mafia Island Toad, vulnerable Shimba Hills banana frog, and endangered Shimba Hills reed frog are among them. The Tana river, which actually runs through central Kenya, is also home to 2 critically endangered and threatened and endemic primates, the Tana river red colobus and the Tana river manabai. If we say vegetation in the hotspot is, we can say, a complex mix of the moist forest as well as dry forest with coastal thickets, savanna woodlands, seasonal and permanent swamps and the mangroves. Much of the coastal forest of this, we can say, Eastern African biodiversity hotspots, original forest have been lost to agriculture conversions and urbanizations. Only about we can say 10% of the original vegetation remains in pristine conditions. The remaining habitat is limited to more than 400 patches of the lowland forest, covering about 6,259 square kilometers. Another is East Melanesian Island biodiversity hotspots. These East Melanesian islands include the island nation of Vanuatu and Solomon Islands, plus the island region of Papua Guinea. The hotspot is one of the most we can say geographically complex areas on earth with diverse range of islands of varying age and development. And in this particular biodiversity hotspot, notable endemic species includes the majestic Solomon fish eagle and many species of the flying fox. There are estimated 8,000 species of vascular plants are found in these Melanesian islands. About 3,000 are considered to be endemic, which are found nowhere else. Overall, we can say the hotspot is home to more than 360 regularly occurring bird species, of which more than 40% are considered to be endemic. Nearly we can say half of the regions, more than we can say 85 mammal species are endemics. The richest diversity of the mammals we can say in East Malaysians is among bats. 110 species of reptiles are found in these biodiversity hotspots, nearly half of which are we can say are endemic. More than 40 amphibian species are also recorded in this biodiversity hotspot, of which 90% are considered as endemic species. Since we can say the independence period from 1975 to 1980, a number of the factors have led to an escalation in the scales and the intensity of the threats to biodiversity in the East Melanesian island hotspots. These includes, we can say, deforestation, agriculture, mining, coastal developments, overharvesting, invasive species, climate change and the sea level rise are among some of the threats that are actually this particular biodiversity hotspots is actually facing nowadays. Another is Eastern Afromontane. The Eastern Afromontane biodiversity hotspot reaches from the top of 4 mountain ranges, including the highest peaks in Africa and Arabia. Overall, the hotspot hold nearly 7,600 species of plants, of which more than 2,350 are endemic. The total number of the bird species in the hotspot exceeds 1,300 species, including 157 considered as endemic. Nearly 350 reptile species are also found in this Eastern Afromontane biodiversity hotspots, of which 90s are considered as endemic. The hotspot is also home to more than 323 amphibian species, of which more than 100 are considered as endemic species of this biodiversity hotspot. The rich biological diversity in the hotspot is, we can say, is mirrored by the massive ecosystem services it actually provides, including, we can say, water for vast areas of East Africans and Arabian Peninsula. The Eastern Afromontane hotspot has suffered, or we can say in parts continues to suffer, civil unrest and conflict, some of which has led to large scale displacement to the human population. Some of these conflicts have had disastrous direct consequences for biodiversity as well as the ecosystem services the hotspot actually providing. As well as we can say there is also an indirect impacts due to resulting lack of law enforcement and investment in conservations. Another is Maputaland-Pondoland-Albany. These biodiversity hotspots located along east coast of southern Africa. This hotspot is, we can say, second richest floristic region in the southern Africa. There are about 1900 endemic plant species are found here, of which 534 are classified as either vulnerable, endangered or critically endangered as per the IUCN Red List of threatened species. In these biodiversity hotspots, approximately 18 million people live in the portion of 3 countries that fall within hotspot boundaries. Birds are the most diverse group of vertebrates in the hotspot with 631 species, of which 14 are endemic. 200 mammal species are also recorded in this biodiversity hotspot, out of which 4 are endemic. More than 200 reptile species are found in the hotspot, roughly we can say 30 of which are endemic. In total, 72 amphibian species are also found, are also recorded in this biodiversity hotspot, out of which all are frogs and 11 are considered endemic. Despite, we can say, the considerable yet unevenly distributed investment in conservation in these biodiversity hotspots, many immediate and long term threats to biodiversity persists. Primarily, we can say habitat loss and degradations from agriculture, timber production, mining and urban development are some of the threats the biodiversity hotspots are facing nowadays. Another is mountains of southwest China. The mountains of southwest China biodiversity hotspot, which stretches from southeast Tibet through western Sichuan and extend into central and northern Yunnan, is the most botanically rich temperate forest ecosystem in the world. Vascular plant diversity is estimated about 12 1,000 species, representing as much as 40% of all species in China. Of these, we can say about 3,500 species, or we can say 29%, or at least 20 genera are considered endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. More than 600 bird species are also found in this biodiversity hotspots, and only a single bird species is endemic to this hotspot. More than 230 mammals are also recorded in this biodiversity hotspots, and 5 are found endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. There are about 90 reptile species are found in this biodiversity hotspots, comprising we can say 20 lizard species and nearly 70 species of the snakes. About 15 species are considered endemic to this biodiversity hotspots. Amphibians are represented by around 90 species in the hotspots, of which 8 species known to be endemic, or we can say they are also globally threatened species. This hotspot is also home to several of the world's best known and threatened mammals, including the vulnerable giant panda and vulnerable snow leopards. The rich biological diversity of the mountains of southwest China hotspot is threatened by excessive exploitations of the region's natural resources. We can say sign of the loss of the biodiversity one can find are evident from forest and ecosystem loss, fragmentation, as well as degradation of the habitats, and species population decline is another way we can consider this biodiversity actually is threatened. So, major direct threats includes, we can say, logging is another threats, we can say illegal hunting and unsustainable harvest, and trade of wildlife is another threats. We can say infrastructures, major infrastructure development is another threats to the biodiversity of this particular hotspots. Another is fuel wood collection is another threats to this biodiversity hotspots. Another is the Philippines. The Philippines includes more than 7,100 islands in the westernmost Pacific Oceans, and is likely the most biologically rich or diverse country in the world in terms of unique terrestrial and marine plant and animal species. 9,250 vascular plant species native to the Philippines are also endemic. There are over 530 bird species found in the Philippines hotspots. About 185 are considered endemic. At least 160 mammals are also found in these biodiversity hotspots, of which 100 are considered as endemic. Reptiles are represented by about 235 species, of which 160 are endemic. There are nearly 90 amphibian species in the hotspots, almost 85% of which are endemic. Many endemic species we can say are confined to the forest fragments that cover only 7% of the original extent of these biodiversity hotspots. This include, we can say, more than 6,000 plant species and many bird species, such as we can say critically endangered Cuba flower peckers and Vian wrinkled hornbills, and also the critically endangered Philippine eagles are among them. If we talk about the amphibian endemism is also very high in this particular biodiversity hotspots and boost unique species like panther flying frog. Along with its remarkable level of the species endemism, we can say the Philippines is one of the world's most threatened biodiversity hotspots, with only about 7% of its original old growth close canopy forest left. Threats to, we can say, that the Philippine biodiversity hotspots includes, we can say, increased population as well as the increased population density and urban sprawl, and we can say conflicting policy of these regions. Another is extractive industries is another threats that actually biodiversity hotspot is actually facing nowadays. Another is Polynesia-Micronesia. This biodiversity hotspots includes the island of Micronesia and Polynesia and scattered across the Pacific Oceans. Despite its extensive ocean coverage, the hotspot is one of the world's smallest in terms of the land area, about the size of the Switzerland. The varied ecosystems of these biodiversity hotspots includes rainforest, temperate forest, wetland and the savannas are among the most threatened in the world. There are about, we can say, 5,330 species of the vascular plants native to this biodiversity hotspot, or we can say 58% are endemic. And the Polynesia-Micronesia hotspot is home to about 290 regularly occurring bird species, of which 160 are endemic to these biodiversity hotspots. The only terrestrial mammals native to these biodiversity hotspots are 15 species of the bats, of which are 11 are endemic to this biodiversity hotspot. There are more than 60 species of the native terrestrial reptiles in these biodiversity hotspots, including 7 snake species. The saltwater crocodiles is one of them, and more than 50 lizards, or we can say 30 reptile species are also endemic to these biodiversity hotspots. Only 3 amphibian species are native to this biodiversity hotspots, and all are, we can say, ranid frogs. 3 species are also endemic to these biodiversity hotspots. We can say an increase in the human population, commercialization, monetization and globalizations, coupled with the erosion of traditional language, about resource management, have made this biodiversity hotspot of Polynesia-Micronesia as one of the most highly threatened biodiversity hotspots in the world. Some of the threats these biodiversity hotspots facing is invasive species, habitat alterations, over exploitation of the natural resources, as well as the global climate change and the sea level rise are also others, we can say, threats that this biodiversity hotspot is facing nowadays. Another is forest of East Australia. The forest of East Australia region was identified as the 35th biodiversity hotspot by a team of researchers from Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization working with Conservation International. The area was determined to be a hotspot because it has more than 2100 endemic vascular plant species. It has also lost 77% of its original habitat, thereby we can say surpassing the requirement of 1500 endemic plant species and 70% of lost habitat. There are more than, we can say, 8,250 species of vascular plants of on this biodiversity hotspot, of which 26% are endemic that have been recorded in this particular biodiversity hotspot. We can say in total there are 549 bird species, of which 40 are considered as endemics that are found nowhere else except this biodiversity hotspot. Reptile endemism in the hotspot is about 27%, and if we talk about amphibian diversity in the particular biodiversity hotspots, amphibian species endemism is highest, that is about 32%. In the northern part of this particular biodiversity hotspot within the Queensland tropical rainforest ecoregions, major threats include, we can say, invasive species, habitat fragmentations. Although we can say substantial areas are now protected with the help of these wet tropic world heritage areas. Another biodiversity hotspot that we are going to discuss in today is California Floristic Province. The California Floristic Province is located along North America Pacific coast. This particular biodiversity hotspot is a zone of Mediterranean type climate and is characterized by hot, dry summers and cool, wet winters. There are about 3,500 species of vascular plants are recorded in this particular biodiversity hotspot, of of which 61% are endemic that are found nowhere else in the world. And if we talk about the bird diversity, there are about 340 bird species are recorded in this biodiversity hotspot, of which less than 10% are endemic. There are about 150 native mammal species in this California Floristic Province biodiversity hotspot, of which 20 are endemic to this particular region. If we talk about the reptile diversity, there are 70 reptile species that have been recorded in these biodiversity hotspots, of which 4 are endemic. The highest level of the endemism in this particular biodiversity hotspot of California Floristic Province are found among amphibians, with over half of the nearly 50 species found only in this hotspot. In general, we can say the area is notable for its high endemism of salamander species. Several we can say large mammal species once found in this biodiversity hotspot of California province have been extirpated from the California since the arrival of European settlers. These includes the species like grizzly bear, grey wolf, jaguar, and the bisons are few among them. Ironically, we can say the grizzly bears appears on the state flag of the California and has been the state symbol of more than 150 years. The natural ecosystem of this California Floristic Biodiversity Hotspot face severe or serious threats from human activities and development. Though a state California economy ranks among those of the top 7 countries in the world, and it is most populated and fastest we can say growing state in the United States. California also supplies we can say one half of all the agriculture products consumed in the United States of America each year. Ecosystems, all these things creating some kind of the direct pressure on the ecosystems include we can say urbanization, pollution, habitat encroachment, expansion of the large scale agricultures, strip mining, as well as oil extraction, invasive alien species, road construction, livestock grazing, logging, increasing use of we can say road vehicles, and suppression of the natural fires. These are the things that actually these are the threats that actually this California Floristic Province are actually facing nowadays. With this, dear students, we end our today's lecture, and in the next lecture we will continue to discuss the remaining biodiversity hotspot. Thank you dear students.